rule for this week: no unintended fires. I think that would be a good thing. Hi there. Welcome, everybody, to Cast Iron Wednesday. This is a long-running tradition that quite a few of these YouTube cooking channels have been doing over the past decade or so, maybe even more. We do a cast iron video on Wednesday because it's a lot of fun. It gives us an excuse to play with our cast iron, produce some content, and all of the usual stuff. But it's a fun tradition to follow, and quite a few of the smaller cooking channels, including mine, have been doing that now. And I've been doing these live videos here almost every Wednesday for somewhat more than 4 years now, and somehow I've managed to survive without burning down my kitchen yet. Last week I may have come close, but nonetheless, things have turned out okay, and we'll indeed be using the oven tonight. And in fact, as the title of this video says, we are going to be making one of those classic Christmas dishes that people usually make around this time of the year, although there's no reason why you couldn't make it at any time of the year. And that would be beef Wellington, that famous British dish that is served for Christmas at quite a few elite households. And but before we get started, I do want to, of course, say hi to everybody who's been kind enough to show up here this evening. I mean, there are a lot of familiar faces, and thank you very much to everybody who's been kind enough to show each week here. So hello to Val's Black Cats Rule and William Hurt. I've seen a snuff blanket ad online of late. I could go for one of those. I'm not sure how well that works on an oven, though. And hello to R.T. Scott and Rich Qualls watching from Southern California, and Pip Gorn and JIR Finishes. Hello, glad to be here, and Rocket Caver. Kimberly Miller, hope all is well. Well, it is so far. We'll see what it's like at the end of the evening. And Radagast and Cynthia Wesley, R.T. Scott. Yes, and thank you to again, and any new folks who are joining here for the first time. Thank you very much, and welcome to my channel, where I managed to try to do a live cooking video each Wednesday here, because what could possibly go wrong doing a cooking video live? Yes, that's why they call this channel Cast Iron Chaos, and but nonetheless. What the beef Wellington is a classic dish, and like many classic dishes, it's actually pretty easy to prepare, as I found. It doesn't have that many ingredients. The most expensive part, of course, is the beef, because the really fancy version of this dish is made using a very, very expensive cut of beef, namely beef tenderloin. Which, as they say, is a very, very small cut of the breast, I guess you could call it, of the of the of the cow, of the beef, and it's situated pretty close to the ribeye. I did not go out and get a tenderloin. I can't afford that right now. I've been a little busy doing Christmas shopping, like so many others. But instead, I went to my local price chopper, and I did come across Eye of Round Roast, which was selling for only like about, I think it was $6, maybe $7. No, I believe it was $6 a pound, in fact. And because of that, I was able to pick up a 3-pound Eye of Round Roast, which, as you can see, I have sliced in half, especially so that it will cook a little faster and a little easier. I've also coated this meat here at about 12 hours ago, just about 8 a.m. this morning. I took this meat out of the fridge. I cut off the fat cap, and as you can see, I did a terrible job of it. But nonetheless, from there, I gave it a liberal coating of kosher salt and left it to dry in the fridge, as you can see on this rack, for the past 12 hours. So this will have a good crust when we sear this in a cast iron pan in a few minutes. But first, before we do so, I have got to get started with chopping some mushrooms, because that's one of the things about a good beef Wellington is it has a particular layer of chopped mushrooms, which they call the duxelle. And that, of course, is a fancy word for a layer of mushrooms. Any excuse for mushrooms is a good one, especially since a couple of things. One is there are quite a few viral videos floating around out there on the internet on how to make a fast and easy beef Wellington. And all of those viral videos, they skip the mushroom duxelle, which is actually a shame because when I made my first attempt at doing beef Wellington, I made the duxelle. It's easy to make, and oh man, is it delicious. Maybe it's because I've got a thing for mushrooms, but the duxelle definitely adds an additional layer of flavor to your beef Wellington that you absolutely do not want to miss. I very, very strongly encourage using the duxelle, making the duxelle for whatever recipe you're going to be using to make this. And I think I might want to pop this so that it will fit a little better. Yeah, that's much better, in fact. Pop. And pop. Yeah, I'm not chopping it by hand this time, well, partly because I do actually have a food processor that I don't use very much, and I'm hoping that it works pretty well. So let's start and actually, I'm sure you probably want to get a closer look on this. So time to move a little closer here. There we go, and bam. Hey, it worked. More or less. Looks like I just need to adjust it a little bit. A little bit there, a little bit there. That was much easier than I thought, thank goodness. Okay, now it's getting fancy on me. All right. Yeah, I have not had much luck, to be honest, with food processors and blenders since I've been cooking. I think I've burned through at least 4 or 5 of them. Before last year, I finally spent a little money and got this one at a restaurant store. There goes one. Come on. Almost there. Just this little bit. And then we'll have this first part here. I'm supposed to do 4 cups of these chopped mushrooms. Come on already. Getting too fancy, isn't it? And 4 cups of mushrooms is only about 8 ounces, as I found out. Careful, I don't want to cut myself. That's another thing not good to do. Okay, I think what I'll do is get some of this, as much of this into the bowl as possible. Though now it looks like I may need to scrape it. Always something. Dig out spatula. So there's a start. Put this thing back in there. Okay. And then let's throw in a few more, and that should be enough. Oh, come on, what did I do now? Did I loosen this thing? There we go. That's on. Next is this. All right. Not all right. No matter what, it's always something, isn't it? Okay, well, don't panic. There, I heard that. Okay. Oh, now what? Okay, I'm doing something wrong, though this looks like it's settled in. Come on. Okay. I have no idea. That's what. Okay, now. What the hell did I do wrong here? And again, I don't want to. Yeah. Can you tell I'm an amateur at this, by the way? I have been cooking for about 14 years, and I still consider myself an amateur. I will probably be an amateur for the rest of my life. Oh, that sounded promising. Okay, I think we finally got it here. Much better. So, now as I said, we'll just throw in a few more. All things considered, these things may not be chopped any faster than if I had chopped them by hand. 2 and 3. These are portobello mushrooms, by the way. Technically, these are baby bella mushrooms. Oh, good. And meanwhile, the oven is in preheating. Okay, so let's go again. Okay. All right. You too. Get this thing up, and I think I'm gonna fake it. Pull out a knife. Cut these things in half, which I probably should have done in the first place. And again, I don't want to cut myself on those blades. And the last one. All right. Now let's see what happens, shall we? Where'd the cover go? Here it is. Okay, once again. The difference between chop and grind is simply the direction the blades turn in. Come on already. Always one piece. All right. Let's do this again. Try not to take as long this time. Right now, I think I'll try taking it out unintentionally so I could scrape the rest of this in. Eventually, I'm going to get it. Anyway, this is the mushroom duxelle, and this is going to be very easy once I get these finished chopping these things. All we really need to do is to saute this in a cast iron pan until the liquid is gone. And it's really supposed to be no more difficult than that. Notice I said supposed to be. Where did that big piece go? Here it is. And finally, a couple more, and I think will probably be more than enough. Supposedly, 8 ounces of mushrooms is enough. I ended up getting like a 24-ounce package, and now I'm about halfway done, so we're talking like maybe 12 ounces of these mushrooms. Wait a second. Cut them in half, remember? Okay. And once this is done, then we get to the fun part, playing with the cast iron. This, that, and the other thing. Yeah, so for those of you who are vegans, don't be squeamish that I'm murdering and shredding these mushrooms. Come on. Always one last piece. You saw that? It just splattered. It's almost like a vegan splatter movie. Okay, but hopefully this should be enough to put our layer of mushroom duxelle into our Wellington. Let's get out this blade again and put it in the sink where it's out of the way. Now we can just simply put the rest of this in here. All right. Yay. Okay. Assuming this is enough, scrape this bit off as well. A little bit more off the cap. All right, now we are more or less done. The first thing I should do is unplug this mixer, or whatever it's called. Because, again, I'm really not interested in any kind of accidents. Put this aside. Finally, okay, so here is our shredded or chopped mushrooms, which means now at last we get to move over to the stove and look at some cast iron. That also means I should move my microphone a little closer here to the stove as well, which is exactly what I will do. Make sure I didn't hit the mute button by mistake. I've done that before. And we can lower this a little bit. Finally, okay. Now, Christmas is 1 week from today. So I decided to get out a couple of my Christmas cast iron pans, which are basically special pans that, that mean a lot to me. And one of these, I think I'd better get, here it is, handle cover. And what we're looking at, in fact, is a vintage cast iron pan from about the late 1930s or so. Specifically, this is the Diamond 8 pan. These number and diamond pans are believed to have been the last line of pans produced by Birmingham Stove and Range. No, I'm wrong. The last line of pans produced by Favorite Stove and Range. And that big difference. In the late 1930s or so, before they were acquired by Chicago Hardware Foundry. And like everything else in the cast iron community these days, it seems people are arguing over that. Some people are saying, why would they bother acquiring a company if this company was going down the tubes? Nonetheless, there's definitely evidence that Favorite did indeed produce a number of cast iron pans under the Chicago Hardware Foundry name. There have even been a few with both names on the bottom of the skillet here. Hello as well to Louis J, Cast Iron Cooking, and Brody YYC, and Granny Graham, Chicago Hardware Foundry, as Corey Clark says. Yes. Hubby thought I was making something while the processor was grinding. Oh, I see. I hope that volume wasn't too loud, in fact. But nonetheless, let me put just a little bit of oil in the pan. I don't need very much because we're supposed to dry it out, not really fry it. So I'm probably talking about just maybe that much. Where did I put that handle cover back? Yes, I did. All right, so we've got a very thin layer of oil on the pan here. And to this, in go the mushrooms. Since I already have the spatula out, I might as well use it to cook these. Anyway, it's only a matter of, as I said, sauteing these until the liquid is gone, because they will indeed release their liquid as they cook. Actually, since I'm kind of basing this on Gordon Ramsay's beef Wellington recipe, I shouldn't say cook. I should say cook. Yeah, so you must cook it in a cast iron skillet. And I can't talk as fast as Gordon Ramsay can anyway. Nonetheless, all we need to do is do this for a few minutes or so, and then we mix in some thyme. And that's really all that this duxelle recipe calls for. That's what I mean. This is definitely an older recipe in that it does not use 57 different ingredients and 17 different kinds of spices. Thyme and some black pepper is about all we are really using to spice this up. Most of the flavor is going to come from the beef. And in general, that's really not going to be too much of a problem. Corey Clark, I've added you as a moderator on my channel. Well, thank you. Well, okay, yeah, I'm glad you were liking that, Louis J. Thank you for. Well, no, I shouldn't say thank you. It's your channel. What I mean is that I'm glad you are getting some help on that. And I see a fine X, and what's the other pan? Well, as stated, this in fact is a possible favorite, possible Chicago Hardware Foundry number in diamond pan. It is a diamond 8, a number 8 in a diamond. And this, in fact, was my grandmother's cast iron skillet. My grandmother on my father's side, in fact. About a couple of years after I got into this crazy cast iron hobby or habit, my dad came to me and said he had a couple of his mom's cast iron pans, and he asked me to clean them up for him. And he gave me this one and a smaller number 3 sized one. And both of these were incredibly crusted with seasoning. You know how every once in a while on the flea markets or antique stores you come across a pan that is so crusted with seasoning. The seasoning must be like about at least 1/8 of an inch thick or so on. This was one of them. I had no idea how she managed to do that over the years, but it was. So I definitely could not recognize it. And I ran it through electrolysis for about 2 days or so, and it ended up turning out practically new. And it was there that I was able to identify this as a number in diamond skillet. The other one, as you stated, is a Finex number 12 cast iron skillet, which we're going to be using in a little bit to actually sear the beef. And this one is special as well because, as a matter of fact, Christmas Day is going to be the 10th anniversary of my owning this skillet. It was Christmas of 2014 where I unexpectedly received this as a Christmas present from Jeff Rogers, the culinary fanatic. I can't believe it was 10 years ago, but it was. And I have been using this pan about as regularly as I can for the past 10 years. One thing I will say is that it took more than at least 2 to 3 years before I was able to get a good buildup of seasoning on this pan. But I finally managed to get it to work. So yes, that of course, definitely makes this a Christmas pan. And unless something happens, I expect to be using that Finex pan on Christmas Day 1 week from today. As stated, all we really need to do is cook these mushrooms through until they are completely, not completely, but until most of the liquid has been reduced or evaporated. Although at this point, we're also supposed to add some thyme. So I know they always call for fresh thyme leaves, and I never think about that. So instead, I'm just going to put in a little bit of dried thyme. Not too much, because this stuff is pretty powerful in flavor. Okay, Brody, let's see. We're going to heat it up and scrape with a putty knife first for gunk. I guess you're talking about a cast iron skillet, perhaps? I had a lot of luck with yellow cap easy off. Yes, that works well with stripping a cast iron pan as well. Although my preferred method these days for doing that is my lye tank, which now in my new home I have it out in the garage. My lye tank is a huge plastic barrel because I've had that for several years. I used that I originally built that huge lye tank so that I could so that I could clean up my 15-gallon cauldron. And I've been doing my best to get a lot of use from it ever since. All right. Are you making Wellington? Yes, I am. Since Christmas is 1 week from today, I figured it would be a good time to make a typical Christmas dish. Well, in many homes these days, I don't think they make beef Wellington, largely because people don't cook very much in the United States these days, unfortunately. We here are kind of the exception to the rule. But for families that do cook, beef Wellington is certainly one of those things that they often make around Christmas. I was debating whether I should throw a little bit of butter into these mushrooms or not because, oh man, buttered mushrooms are just too much. Anyway, this is all going to be just a nice, simple layer. The older Finex were hard to season since they were polished like Stargazer. Yes, they were, and yes, this is. This one here, in fact, does have a glass smooth cooking surface on the bottom. And as you say, it really took a lot of effort to put seasoning on this. That is one reason why some folks actually have found cast Finex skillets at Goodwill or flea markets. People just essentially gave up trying to use them. Glad I stuck through it. Okay, this is definitely drying out at this point. We are probably already at the point where this can be considered a mushroom bechamel. All right, learning to cook on cast iron should be taught in school. That wouldn't be a bad thing, Brody. There are, arguably, cooking might even should be a mandatory class because, so many of the younger generation today, including my generation, mind you, grew up never really learning how to cook. Because why should you when you can always just go to Walmart and buy those frozen pot pies and frozen burritos and of course frozen microwave pizzas? Yes, I'm guilty of that as well for about 2/3 of my life. So I know that all too well. I have memories of taking a basic cooking class in something like 6th grade. I don't remember too much of it. I don't think I paid much attention during that class, unfortunately. Probably because back then, I was in 6th grade in like the mid-1970s, well, later 1970s. Back then, of course, cooking was considered to be women's work. So naturally, 6th grade boys really weren't that interested in cooking. All right, I'd say we are probably good here. So let's turn this off. And I should probably get this into a bowl just so that it doesn't burn or overcook or anything. So glad to have this leather handle cover here. The handle cover originally came with the field skillet, which was in fact a gift to me from none other than Louis J. It's a week before Christmas. I've said this before and I will say it again. Folks, do not send me cast iron for Christmas. I know that there are people who have generously offered to donate cast iron to my channel, and I have no need for any further donations. If you want to give away cast iron, give it away to family or friends or anyone else you feel might be able to get some use out of it. I have plenty. In fact, I'm giving away cast iron skillets as Christmas presents myself. Okay. Anyway, Honey Badger, I love when I go to garage sales and Goodwill and find the normies give up on cast iron so I can score a nice piece for nothing. Yes, that's quite a lot of what happens to us during that. Okay, now that we've done that and taken care of the duxelle, we are pretty much ready to move on to step 2. Okay, let's get this out of the way, which means need to get need to get my pot holder here because this handle on this fine skillet is not perfect. No, it is definitely not perfect. This handle still gets hot. Let's move back over to the center here. But here it is. Let's turn that heat back on. And, okay, because the next step is to take that eye of round and sear it. We are not going to thoroughly cook it here in this pan. All we really need to do is to sear it and give it a decent crust. Because then after that, we're going to coat this with all of the other layers of the Wellington and then slow cook it in the oven, especially because this is an eye of round. And about the only way you can get a decent eye of round is to slow cook it. Okay, all right, commercial. Well, I'm sorry about that. I found some great cast iron at estate sales. Well, you've actually had better luck than I have at that, Radagast. I've only been to a few estate sales, and I really have not had any good cast iron scores at those. Brian Gilcrease, I bought pre-breaded frozen fish to test the BSR shallow fryer. Ooh, that sounds good. Cheap olive oil. It was great. Yeah, why not? I mean, after all, if it's supposed to be a fish fryer, why not start out by frying fish in it? Buzz 4K, us country boys always went camping during summer vacation. We carried cast iron skillets, plenty of bacon and eggs, and lived like kings. That all sounds good. Okay. Let's just make sure that this thing here is up to searing temperature. It's close. We are just passing the 400 mark. So I like to do this when this thing starts to smoke, which typically is past 450. So maybe another minute or so. Let's get another look at what we're going to be putting into this pan, which again is an eye of rounds that I cut into 2 parts. And I coated this with, I gave it a coating of kosher salt and let it dry in the fridge over the past 12 hours. So there should certainly be a good crust from this as a result. Balance my cat's rules. I have a cat on my pillow and one on the other open section. No room on the bed for me. I have a cat under my tree. Ever since I put up the Christmas tree, Miss Mobley has been living there. Oops, something's still on. My cat, Miss Mobley, she really, really loves it under that tree. I think she considers it to be camouflage, like or a hiding place, like a cat instinct. Okay, don't know. Okay, there we go. It looks like the pan is starting to smoke now, so I think we are getting good here. And pop up from AVG, I'm not interested. All right, that means we get to do just a little bit more oil in this pan. Again, not very much. I use corn oil, especially when I do steaks or beef Wellington, because I find it's a nice high temperature oil and it's not too expensive. And where did I just put that? I swear I'm losing my memory here. Here it is. That pot holder here. Just swirl it around a little bit. And we are ready to go. Oh, nuts. I did forget one other thing. Tongs. Okay, let's get this over here. Try not to bump this cord, which I've done on previous nights and ruin the live. All right, at last. So, here we go. 1 and 2. And this is why I chose the Finex skillet, because it's big enough for me to sear both of these at the same time. Save a little time that way. All I really need to do is sear each side for about a minute or so. It's important to look out for each other. Yes, exactly. My puppy doesn't know what to think of the Christmas tree. She keeps sleeping under it. Well, again, that's the same thing with my cat. But I think my cat really likes being under the tree, which is fine with me. It makes my cat happy, then I'm happy. Probably good enough on this side. Turn this over. Okay, start. The cat is a rapper. No, I don't think so. She's very modest, actually. And this Mowgli was a shy cat for most of her life. She's just over 4 years old now. Although she seems to have come out of her shell lately. I had guests over about a week or so ago, including a couple of teenagers. She did not leave her space under the tree. She stayed there, which is why, again, I think being under that tree makes her feel secure. Yeah, that's it. Okay, yeah, definitely good heat. And that is one thing I've learned about this cast iron, this Finex cast iron skillet in particular. This may very well be one of the heaviest cast iron pans I've ever held, at least in this size, and definitely the heaviest in my collection, again, for this size. And the thick and heavy cast iron does an excellent job holding in heat and searing meat, which of course is what we want. So when I'm going to cook a steak, I will reach for this Finex skillet, largely because I'm lucky enough to own it. That, of course, gets into the debate over cheap cast irons, such as Lodge, and expensive cast irons, such as Finex, or Field, or Stargazer, or Butter Patty, like. And we've discussed this before on this channel. I mean, we've actually had a discussion, not just me giving a sermon or anything like that. All I can do is state my opinion. My opinion is that Lodge cast iron is excellent for cooking. It's excellent for searing steak. You will not regret using Lodge cast iron. These deluxe cast irons, such as the Finex here, are also excellent for cooking. And arguably, they might be a little bit better for different reasons. As I mentioned, this thing is so thick and heavy. This is my go-to pan for searing steaks, for instance. But partly it's a matter of preference. So I've said this before too. I personally feel the difference between, like, say, Lodge and Finex is like the difference between excellent for the Lodge and outstanding for the Finex. Because as noted, it took a good couple of years or so to get a decent crust on this thing. Okay, and since all we're trying to do is sear it, turn off the heat. Get these onto a plate. Now, move over here for the next step. Because while this is still hot, put this out of the way. Get out my basting brush, which I thought I had here. Here it is. Move the microphone back over towards here so you folks can hear me okay. And we're now going to coat these pieces of meat with Dijon mustard. As you can see, I go for the inexpensive stuff. Actually, let's do it this way. And the fact that we're using Dijon mustard also shows that this is definitely a classical British dish. Dijon mustard is one of those things that you find in just about every British meat dish. In fact, you could say that really in a lot of ways about beef Wellington, because this has a lot of meat, it has a lot of bread or puff pastry in this case. Some people use other kinds of pastry or even bread for their Wellington. All right. Man, can I smell this already? Oh, this Dijon mustard has quite the scent to it. Let me see, so as not to dirty my hands. Let's get those tongs back out. Maybe just a touch more mustard. Let's get this out of the way so I don't get it dirty. Don't need a lot. Maybe just a dab. Come on. And there we go. That's probably more than enough, in fact, because we don't want to overwhelm it. Although, considering what else we are adding to this, I don't think we are going to overwhelm it. This almost reminds me of that shooter's sandwich I made during the summer, which was really steak and Dijon mustard in, well, a loaf of bread. And man, was that ever good. Makes me think that maybe I should have used a chuck roast for this. Regardless, while the meat is resting, it's now time to actually start preparing our Wellington. Because, yeah, the hard part is done. So, let's get this out of the way. Move on to the next step. Double check the recipe to make sure I'm not missing anything, which I tend to do a lot. Seared beef, assembled beef Wellington. Okay, so be it. I should get these extra bits out of the way. Okay, according to Monsieur Ramsay, moisten your cutting board with a damp towel. Okay, then let's get a towel and dampen it. That also helps to clean off any excess stuff. Next, layer 3 pieces of plastic wrap on the board. So here comes some plastic wrap. Last time I made this, I think I said this in the description of this video. The last time I made this was about 3 years ago when I was still recovering from a fractured wrist. So I actually had a brace on my wrist at this point as I was doing this, and it still turned out pretty good. The final photo is on the cover, the thumbnail of this video, where as you can see, it doesn't look that great, I will admit that, but it sure tasted fantastic, which is why I'm hoping I can do a slightly better job tonight. Come on. And actually, my question now is something I've been debating pretty much. Since I have 2 of these, do I want to make 2 separate Wellingtons or combine them into one really long Wellington? Not sure yet. Okay, to this. All right, layer. Now okay, here is where we get out the next ingredient, and that would be puff pastry. So let's get this thing out of the way. By the way, I'm almost certain that this live video is not going to show the final result because it will likely still be cooking in the oven after like maybe an hour and a half or so. So I will have to, of course, show you the finished results a little later. Nonetheless, carefully. All right. Okay. Based on this, I hope this puff pastry is properly thawed out, actually. I'm not so sure about that based on this. If you'll excuse me for a moment, I'm going to put this in the microwave for about maybe 30 seconds. Interesting. Because I want to be sure this thing is thawed out and soft. My daughter at 3 years old used to open the fridge and drink the mustard. Oh, yeah. The French used mustard gas in World War I. Shooter sandwich. I don't remember that one. Look it up on my channel, Honey Badger. Much better. I've only had it in for about 20 here on, well, Cast Iron Wednesday, in which I did prepare the shooter's sandwich. And one comment I definitely remember making on that video is that could there possibly be a more politically incorrect name than a shooter sandwich? All right. Based on this, I'd say from the looks of it, I may end up just doing 2 Wellingtons. So here's one sheet of puff pastry. All right. And then to this, okay. Now the next part is we're supposed to, okay. The recipe calls for prosciutto or prosciutto. I believe it's prosciutto, a very fancy Italian meat, which once again is rather expensive. And once again, I'm going to fake it. In fact, I'm going to be using good old bacon here. However, I think I goofed again. Let me dig out that knife again. So that we can get this out of the package. There we go. Good enough. And we are supposed to layer this onto here, which is what I am gladly doing. One more piece. Yeah, from the looks of this, I think I'm going to end up doing 2 Wellingtons, in fact. All right. And then once we've done that, then spread the mushroom duxelle. Okay. Where did I just put it? Here it is. That spatula. Plop. This really doesn't look so hard. Whoops. Don't spill it. This really doesn't look so hard, does it? Like I said, last time I made this, I had only partial use of one of my hands, because Again, fractured wrist. And again, I'd like to think that the results still were not that bad. Come on. Oh, don't tell me this. I may actually have to make another duck cell. Starting to look like it. Well, there's my mistake. I think I make a mistake in some way or another every week. Nonetheless, this is still not looking too badly. And I will repeat, most of those viral videos for making beef Wellington skip this step. I advise don't skip this step because this is going to add an immense amount, can't forget this little bit, an immense amount of flavor to the finished Wellington. Highly recommend it. You're going to go the distance. All right, next. And now from here, okay, season with salt and pepper. A little bit of salt and pepper. It shouldn't be too much. Less pepper. Love pepper. All right, then pour resting juices from the beef over the mushrooms. Ooh, that's still hot. That would mean any juices from the pan. And there is a little bit. Maybe spread this out if possible. And finally, okay, now we place the beef at the bottom here. So let us dig this out. Get the tongs one more time. As best as we can without dropping things, because that's another thing I tend to do. Let's take this beef, place it here. There we go, put it in the center there. The brown layer is a mushroom duxelle. These are, in fact, sauteed, chopped, or shredded, or mushrooms. So it may look a little like something else, but it is definitely not that. I can promise you that. Okay, now here's the part where we're supposed to use the plastic wrap to lift this. And actually, now that I'm doing this, I should probably even do it this way. Wrap to lift this over. And okay, so looks like there's a little bit extra here, in which case then I think we can fudge it. And use another sheet of puff pastry. I'm very glad I got 2 of these little packages of puff pastry. At this point, I think all I need to do is cut out an additional slice of this, like so. From here, let's simply rest this on top. Bam. The edges, I guess. Oh, yes. Now is the part where we have to do two things. One is place it in the pan, and the other is use an egg wash. So, move this out of the way. That means it's time to get out yet another cast iron pan. And because I ended up with two of these pieces of beef, I realized if this would be a job for one of my favorite kitchen items. Look at that. Birmingham Stove and Range shallow fish fryer. All right. Yes, wasn't somebody just mentioning that a little earlier? Nonetheless, let's just get this in. Yeah, definitely. I think there are going to be two of these Wellingtons here. I can only hope that they like this Wellington when I present it to them. All right. That's one, which means I only have a little bit of duxelle left, so I guess I am going to have to actually do this again as best as I can. The indicator is never accurate. I have 6 showing. Egg wash the ends and you're good. Yes, exactly. That is indeed my intention. All right. So, let's do just that. Then we'll have to do it again. Because I goofed again and did not make enough of the duxelle. So, all right. The next thing I need is a little dish and an egg. Get this out of the way. And my basting brush, which I have here somewhere. I'm starting to lose track of everything here at this point. This side to be safe. Get rid of a couple of these pieces of trash. And where the heck did I put my basting brush? Because I did use it. Oh, I put it in the sink. Okay. Fortunately, that's still clean. This basting brush, which happens to still have some of that Dijon mustard on it. So this is going to be kind of like a Dijon mustard egg wash. Don't worry, my sink is clean. And anyway, this is going to go into a hot oven. That's one way to do it, isn't it? You don't need a thick egg wash. Which means that little bit is more than enough to cover this, including the ends. Which means this is Wellington #1. Because now I've got to repeat what I did earlier. Regrettably, I'm sorry about that. Make a little bit more of the duxelle and do this again. All right. Dijon is a great binder, so that's fine. Okay, good. At least you bought more shrooms. Yes? Yes, I did, as a matter of fact. Unfortunately, I got more shrooms. So at least I'm prepared in that respect. So that means we get to do this again. kind of hoping to get this into the oven by now. Oh well, this won't take very long anyway. Ugh. Main reason why this has taken this long is because I have taken my time and moved at a much slower pace because, of course, I've been yakking away here. Oh yeah, the blade. Right. I mean, if you do this without being live, you could probably have this done in half the time it took me to do this. So that means I better get that pan out again. And let me see. It looks like I think I might actually be preparing this in a Finex pan again, because the other one is over on the side cooling off. All right. There's that. And that. Bring the flavor. Well, there's going to be no shortage of flavor in this, I can promise you. I mean, beef, Dijon mustard, mushrooms. Oh, hello, Alley Oop. Well, not to worry, Alley Oop, because in fact, I'm pretty much repeating what I did earlier this evening because I have to make a little bit more duxelle and a second beef Wellington. Let's get this going. Carefully. I do not want to cut myself on this. I think we have it this time. So once again, yeah, even though this still has a little bit of Dijon on it, I don't think that will be a problem. Carefully get this blade out. There we go. This back in the bowl. However, it is worth the effort of making more duxelle. I've already said how wonderful the duxelle is, and I mean it. This stuff is great. Again, if you are going to do a Wellington, I highly recommend making the duxelle, even if the recipe that you are using doesn't call for it. Good. Good. Couple more mushrooms, and then we'll finally be ready. As I said, I'm trying to do this as fast as I can so as not to waste your time. Liver is the one and only food that I cannot eat. Yes, I have seen Wellington recipes that use liver. As you can see, I'm using one that does not. I've eaten liver. I found it okay. I don't think I'll eat it again. On the other hand, I've eaten kidney, and I will never eat that again. Yay, it worked this time. Unplug this first and foremost. I've had enough accidents. I do not want any more. That takes care of that. Meanwhile, the Finex has been heating up. I'm hearing a little bit of snap, crackle, and pop over there. And looking over, no, there's no fire there. So once again, this is just mushrooms. It's not meat. Because I know somebody commented earlier, what's the brown layer? But no, don't worry, I'm not taking that negatively. Of course, mushrooms are considered in the vegetarian community to be an excellent meat substitute. All I care about is that they taste delicious. Back to the stove. Don't trip over this cord. And hello again to the Finex cast iron pan, where we go now for duck cell number 2. Still not doing too badly. We should have this in the oven just in time so that we don't run over. Where'd that spatula go? Where did that spatula go? Oh, here it is. All right. That means I need my, put this in the sink. Need my pot holder once again. And bam. So I guess that's another rule. I've been saying all these good things about the mushroom duxelle. I guess the other rule is make more of it than you're supposed to. I think I'm definitely going to have to cobble a Wellington recipe together myself based on all of this, based on my experiences here, and include little bits like that. Anyway, again, we just simply saute this until the liquid is gone, because as you saw, it still is a nice mushroom paste. It doesn't come apart. It's not completely bone dry. It's almost as if the makers of this recipe knew what they were doing. Anyway, while we're waiting here, interesting design over all of that pan. Yes, the Finex pan, it is interesting, isn't it, with its octagonal shape here. And all of this was intentional. They designed every part of the pan, some parts more successful than others. These corners here are meant as pour spouts for you to pour liquid out of the pan. The spring handle here is supposed to, I say supposed to, keep from getting too hot. But that doesn't really work very well because the spring handle does indeed get hot. And furthermore, this little bronze cap here on the end, this gets wicked hot. So you still need a pot holder or handle cover really to use this thing. And folks who would have paid the full amount of over $200 for a Finex cast iron pan have complained about that. You know, they figure what they're paying for it, this pan should be absolutely perfect without little flaws like that. They may be right. Nonetheless, I've said before that I very much enjoy using this Finex pan, and especially because it was a Christmas present, I have no intention of getting rid of it. On the other hand, I am thinking more and more, like maybe after the New Year's, of doing a giveaway for my Wagner griddle, which I've talked about there recently. I guess maybe if I spread it out, it might dry out faster. And yes, you are right in that this brown layer certainly does look like something else, doesn't it? To be charitable, it looks like pate, and I'm being charitable. But fortunately, as I said, this is sauteed mushrooms. Wonderful to eat, especially since we also mix in a little bit of thyme. Not too much. That's probably enough. Anyway, once this is done and our second Wellington is built, this is all going to go into the oven. I have the oven preheated to 425 degrees. This is so that we can first cook and we can first brown, I should say, the puff pastry. Puff pastry, you start it out at a high temperature in order to get it to, well, puff. Then you lower it to about 325 or so until it is thoroughly browned and baked through. Then at that point, I will lower the temperature even more to like about 250 degrees and slow cook the beef until it reaches its target temperature of about 130 to 135 degrees. This is eye of round, and my understanding is, like I said, I'm an amateur still, is that 130 to 135 slow cooked is the optimum temperature for serving eye of round. If you rapidly cook it like a steak, you will end up with an extremely tough and chewy piece of meat. Eye of round has to be slow cooked in order to work. This is also why eye of round is used in a popular way for making roast beef. That is where you start out in a 500-degree oven, and then you turn the temperature way down, and again, slow cook it until it reaches the right temperature. Or a method that I have publicly complained about. You know the one that in fact a lot of people say also applies to a rib roast or standing rib roast or prime rib. You know the one that says you start out in a 500-degree oven for 5 minutes per pound. Then you're supposed to turn off the oven completely and let it sit for 2 hours. For many people, that works successfully, but that method is not guaranteed. That method, it depends really on whether you have a good oven or not. If you have a good oven, then yes, that method can work. If your oven is not so good, it's not going to work, because a not so good oven will probably lose that temperature a lot faster, and you will end up with an undercooked roast beef, as I was originally talking about, or prime rib for that matter. I've actually had emails and comments from people about that, that they ended up with an undercooked prime rib on Christmas Day, and so they had to kind of like take slices and fry them up on the grill. Which is why using a probe thermometer and cooking to temperature is a much more reliable way to either slow cook an eye of round, which is what we're going to do, or a prime rib or standing rib roast. There are quite a few videos out there. I've done one myself for prime rib, in fact. So if you want a little bit of advice, look it up. Prime rib with a cooking thermometer. That is the key. I've long since been a convert to cooking meat to temperature rather than by time, whether it's prime rib or chicken or steak or pork loin, what have you. All right, again, I'm trying to get this thing quickly done as quickly as possible, and I think we're probably pretty close, in fact. This doesn't look too bad. There is still some steam coming off of this thing, though, so maybe another couple of minutes. I'm trying to get this so that we will have this whole thing done and in the oven within the next 10-15 minutes. All right. Wellington K. Klopp. My memory growing up in a farm country and tongue sandwich. Huh. Cow tongue boiled in a pot, outer skin peeled off, sliced, put in the sandwich. Listen, it tastes good. The one time I tried tongue, I found it to be extremely fatty, but that was just me. There's a man on TikTok eating barbecue snake. I haven't tried it, but I hear cow tongue is delicious. Like I said, I tried cow tongue. Maybe it wasn't prepared very well, but for me, it was very, very fatty. I think we're getting to the point where this duxelle is just about done. I am very much someone who my mantra for the last, probably 15 years now has been, if I find myself saying I've never tried it before, then I have to try it. And I've made a lot of wonderful discoveries that way. I have not yet had barbecued snake. I would try it. I've said quite a few times, and I still mean it, that if it was cooked properly, I would indeed try rat meat. But if it was cooked properly. I may be stupid, but I'm not dumb. See, we're still getting bits of steam from this. Maybe another minute, and then I think we will finally be ready. Okay. Sliced cow tongue on rye with deli mustard. Pork brains are good. Anyway, other than this wonderful talk about exotic meats, let's see if I've missed anything else. Nice 131 is exactly what I would cook eye around as well with sous vide. Yes, exactly. I like that plan. Then, of course, you still need your cast iron because you need to reverse sear. Absolutely. And that was the first thing I did, in fact, at the beginning of this video. I did, in fact, sear that eye of round that is now currently sitting there coated in Dijon mustard. Okay, now I think we are done. Okay, so let's turn this off. Move this off the heat. Leave it here, I think. And get back to preparing a second Wellington. Yay. Get this out of the way again. Okay, that means, where did that damp cloth go? Where did it go? How do I keep losing these things? Oh, that's not it. Where did I put that damp cloth? I said damp cloth, that is. Oh, here it is. It's right here. All right. Once again, wipe off the board with a damp cloth. Lay down a couple of sheets of plastic. Because, yeah, I have to admit, it looked like that method actually worked. All right. Once again, got our puff pastry, second package. Let's see whether I may feel soft. I'm debating whether I may have to heat it up in the microwave quickly. And in fact, I think I will. Only for about 30 seconds or so. I'll be right back. And let's move this microphone over here so that it's out of the way. In case you didn't hear that, I'm going to heat this in the microwave for about 30 seconds to soften it out. All right, then from there, it's really just a matter of those layers. Puff pastry, bacon, the mushroom duxelle, and then the meat. As I mentioned, this is a classic dish, which means it doesn't have 57 ingredients and 300 kinds of spices. And I'm quite happy with that. There it goes. All right, pork brain sandwiches. Okay. We have a butcher that can get most specialty meats. Oh, nice. I may want to talk to him. Oh, yeah, this is much better. Glad I did that. In fact, lay this out more like here. There we go. Okay. Once again, these out of the way. Lay down the bacon. Sure is convenient that this bacon happens to be about the same width as this puff pastry, isn't it? How convenient. Move this over a little bit. And this again. And bam. All right. And now that we've done that, time for, still hot, time for duxelle part 2. Ugh. Get this out of the pan. Start spreading it around. Try not to spill it all over the place. Ugh. You're probably getting tired. Oh, that smells good. You're probably getting tired of me saying how wonderful the duxelle is. Well, I'm not going to stop saying that because this is good stuff. Once again, try it yourself and see. All right. Spread this out more towards the top as best as I can. There we go. And that's working. It doesn't seem to be coming apart. Like that. Come on. Don't rush. I'm telling myself, don't rush. My bad. All right. Good enough. I don't think anybody will see it. Okay, which means one more time to lay out the meat. Because, as they say at Arby's, we have the meats. Bam. From here, again, don't rush. I have to be careful. Which is where... Oh, yeah, that's right. I use that spatula as well to hold the meat down. That's why. Come on. All right. Just like before, it seems to have just a little bit of a gap, which we will fix with another slice of the puff pastry. Here's the one that I sliced earlier. I realized that if this were like a cooking competition, I would be booted out. But it's not a cooking competition. It's just me trying to make something nice. All right. Which means, finally, one more time, break out the BSNR fish fryer. Bring this over as best as we can. And do this right. In we go. Haha. There's number 2. Hooah. Okay. Which means, like before, we need to crimp the edges. And as somebody pointed out, we also need to egg wash it, which is exactly what we will do. Crimp it together. And now, where did that egg wash go? Here it is. Egg wash number 2. Which we don't even need a lot of. Oops, there it goes again. It's coming. Crimp it up a little bit more. There we go. Push it in. Crimp. There. And egg wash. Because that means in we go. All right. For whatever it's worth, we have not 1 but 2 beef Wellingtons. And at long last, let me get this out of the way again. Ready for the oven. Now let me wash off my hands. Okay. Cows in a blanket. Yep, basically, yeah. I would agree with that, as a matter of fact. I would say that pigs in a blanket are probably a relative to this. I saw this cute and meant to be funny food meme comparing all of the different kinds of Wellingtons. It mentions pigs in a blanket. It mentions corn dogs. It mentions the beef Wellington. It mentions empanadas and hot pockets. Yeah, steak pockets. Except that I'm certain this is going to taste so much better than a hot pocket. I think I will do one last thing. Just a light coating of pepper. These cooking competitions, so stressful. I want cooking to be meditative and nourishing to body and soul. You and me both. Beef tamales, all of which sounds good. Because now, at last, it's time for the final step. And that is to get this thing into the oven. My recently cleaned oven. And I already told that story before. Well, like a couple of days ago. Means now, once again, here comes the final bit. Move this off the stove, and a 1, a 2, a 3. Oh, look at that! That dish is still in there. I should probably have taken that out. Okay. Okay, there we go. All right, so this thing is at 425, especially so that it can start puffing the pastry. I figure that's only going to be like about 20 minutes or so. Then, after that, we will drop it down to about 325 degrees for like maybe another, oh, I don't know, 15 minutes or so. Then, after that, I'm going to drop the temperature way down, like maybe even 225, and slow cook this. Right now, I don't think that the high heat will actually do much job cooking the meat because it is, of course, coated in pastry and mushrooms. So this is why I decided to use the high heat at the beginning. I've yet to have beef Wellington, and I know I want a slice, William Hurt. Well, if nothing else, I hope this shows this really was not that not that it was not that hard to make, even if I can't say it right. I mean, again, I prepared two of these. It took me much longer to make than you would make because, again, I went through this step by step and was talking my way all through this live video here. If I just simply concentrated on doing it, I'm betting both of these would have been in the oven at least half an hour ago. So all of this really suggests that just that. Give it a try. And again, because I was cheap and I didn't get an expensive beef Wellington, this wasn't all that expensive. Prices have gone up on everything. Puff pastry is expensive these days. But really, those are the main ingredients. You know, your beef, your mushrooms, and your puff pastry. And all the rest of that, as you saw, I really used no more than some thyme and some Dijon mustard, as you say, as the binder. And now it's in the oven. And again, in just a little under 20 minutes. 20 minutes? Yeah, I'll check it after 15 minutes. I will then lower the temperature. And we will start slow cooking. So I estimate this whole thing will probably be done and reach the right temperature within the next hour to an hour and a half. Well, you have to be patient when cooking. I mean, that's one rule that I learned. You really can't rush these things. Even if you're cooking something that cooks very fast, if you rush it, you're going to make mistakes. I've made more than my share of mistakes, and you folks have been here to see that. Okay, 20-second commercial. Sorry about that, Rocket Caber. The pan has to heat up too. Yes, exactly, that too. Two of them is enough. I'll get my fork. It ain't heavy when it's that good. Oh, yes, this is definitely going to be a heavy dish. There's no denying that. Roast beef is a heavy meat. All right, I'd like to try this someday. Well, again, did you mention bacon earlier, or does that come with the slow cooking? No, I did mention bacon. You're right. I forgot that in the ingredients. Make it 4 ingredients. That is the beef roast, the mushrooms, bacon, and the puff pastry. Again, if you want to go all out and spend massive amounts of money, you can do a really classic beef Wellington by just that, by getting an expensive cut of beef, especially beef tenderloin, which is what this recipe was really made for. Also, instead of the bacon, you can use prosciutto, which is, again, another very fancy, and yes, boy, it is delicious, Italian cold cut. But it's really, as I said, it's really upper class and quite expensive. Likewise, instead of the puff pastry, a lot of people use their own homemade things. In some cases, it might even be pancakes or crepes. Really, there's no reason why you can't experiment and come up with something that's easy for you, and especially something that you feel confident that you can make at a time like, say, Christmas. Because that's, again, one of the most popular days of the year for making something truly extravagant, like tortilla, pork pie, make a cooked ham, make a turkey, excuse me, and beef Wellington. Okay, I'd say we are about right. Yeah, okay. The good people can fix their own mistakes. Yes, I've said this before, and believe me, last week certainly applies to it. In cooking, there are several disasters and many learning experiences. Fortunately, we can eat the learning experiences. Last week was a disaster. Could have been much, much worse, but it was still a cooking disaster. This time, I'm fairly confident there is not going to be a disaster and hopefully not even a learning experience. Right. Watch the replay of last Thursday. Yes, exactly. So, how about a pork Wellington? Definitely. In fact, several years ago, in fact, what's the guy? I can't believe I've forgotten his name. That really, really popular kid with like 10 million followers on his channel. My God, my mind's gone blank. You know the one, the guy. Somebody kicked me. I can't believe I've forgotten his name. He did a video a few years ago in which he made a beef Wellington, a cheaper beef Wellington, and a pork loin Wellington. And of the three, he thought the pork loin Wellington was probably the best. So yes, and besides, pork loin is really not that expensive, especially if you get it on sale. So yeah, that is a good option. In fact, if you don't, if you think even eye of round is too expensive, go for a pork loin and make a pork Wellington. You still won't regret it. All right. And with that, I think we're about done here because all I can do now is just watch the oven and turn the temperature down. And then once the temperature is really low, I will stick in a probe thermometer. And I've said that part already. So I do believe we are all set for the evening, and I can only thank everybody again for taking their time to watch this tonight. And especially since, well, we are again 1 week away from Christmas. But I'd like to thank everybody who's been kind enough to show up here, and thank you as well to Val's Black Cat's Rules for coming into my kitchen this night, as I've invited everybody to join us here. And Brian Lagerstrom, no, it wasn't Brian Lagerstrom. I don't think he's done a beef Wellington yet. My mind has gone completely blank. I can't believe that is this. Who the hell is that kid who is enormously popular? He just released this cookbook about a year ago that shot to the top of the Amazon bestseller list. I don't know. These days, he's making fewer of these cooking lesson videos and more videos that are like, I did this crazy, impossible thing you're never going to do. So I'm not really happy about that. But yes, anyway, thank you again to Jimmy Langford. And thank you, Granny Graham and R.T. Scott. Jimmy Langford, was it the BSR camp oven or the lid? I'm looking for the camp oven. But please, don't go out of your way. It is entirely possible I may never find that camp oven for the rest of my life because it is extremely, extremely rare. It is a Red Mountain 13-inch camp oven. I don't think I've ever seen a 13-inch BSR camp oven, not on the internet or anywhere. I've seen a couple of rare 13-inch spiders, but I have never seen a BSNR camp oven. For all I know, maybe they don't exist anymore. But maybe one of these days I might actually find it. I don't know. All right, in terms of affordable red meat, I might be doing a goat stew for New Year's. That sounds good. I live in a Dominican neighborhood, and goat is delicious, affordable option. Yes, I've had goat meat. I like goat meat. Goat meat has almost more of a sweeter taste than, say, beef, for instance. I can't really even describe it because it's a unique flavor. But yes, I would indeed go for goat. Goat curry. Okay, and thank you again, though, to everybody once again. Thank you to Azalea, and thank you to Kay Clock, and thank you to Rocket Caver, and 4M Morris family, and Kevin Brown, and good night, yes, because next Wednesday is, in fact, Christmas Day. And while I am still planning to do a live video next Wednesday on Christmas on Christmas evening, not Christmas Eve. And it's possible that you folks might even be all done with all of your celebration by then. The gifts have been opened, the relatives have visited. you have done whatever, if you go to church or anything like that. And that's all usually done during the morning to midday. At which point, then everybody then probably has their feast in the mid afternoon to early evening. So by the time 8 o'clock comes next week, it's entirely possible everybody's going to be exhausted and might not want to do anything, which might actually be a good time to come and join me here on Cast Iron Chaos next week at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. But thank you, everybody, for showing up here tonight. And yes, indeed, Merry Christmas, everybody. See you all next Wednesday.